So hey everybody, and today we're going to talk about inflammation. It's a very important topic. Just like I said, it's at the root of every disease. Before we begin the presentation, however, I just want to make everybody aware that lifestyle interventions can be very powerful. If you're on any kind of medication and you start making lifestyle changes, you probably need to be in touch with your doctor for monitoring your symptoms, because lifestyle can actually be so powerful that it can reduce the need for the medication. So your dosage may need to be eventually be adjusted. So just be aware of that before we make any changes. So talking about inflammation, what is inflammation? I think, when we say inflammation, we think fire, right? Just fire. But what does it mean when it comes to our bodies? What exactly is it? So inflammation is basically a response that your immune system has, and it's going to have this response to any threat, any injury or infection or trauma or toxin or heat, anything that is perceived by the immune system as harmful for you and I. It's going to turn up its response, and that response is inflammation. The easiest way to demonstrate this is you can do it yourself, or you don't have to. You can, when you cut yourself, you know how it swells and there's pain and there's redness and there's heat. And if you just want a little demo, you could even just lightly irritate your skin, just keep doing it for a while and see, you will see that it turns red. And then even if you do it long enough, it'll swell. So that's an immune response. And inflammation has four characteristics: pain, swelling, redness, and heat. So this is easy to see when it's physically, you can see that when there's an injury. What is not easy to see, and this is an acute situation, right? This is acute inflammation when you hurt yourself. But what is harmful and not easy to see and silent is inflammation that's chronic and that's going on inside our bodies. So before we can understand that, I'm going to do a very quick overview of the immune system. And I'm going to tell us a story about us being inside a castle. So if you just follow the story, I'm going to try to connect the dots back to the immune system. It's a gross oversimplification of a very, very complex process, but I'm going to try. So let's suppose that we are the queen of this castle, and we're in there happy and safe. And we have a lot of protection. We're living in our bubble. We don't care what's happening outside because we know we're well protected. So the first thing that protects us is the wall. If you can see my cursor, like right outside the castle, there's a wall. And this wall is very, very strong. So when you connect it back to your immune system, this is our barriers that we have. It could be like, it is, in fact, our skin, and then the mucous membranes that line our nose and eyes and mouth, our throat, inside our lungs, and then inside our digestive tract. It's because all of this is exposed to the outside world, and this barrier needs to be very, very strong. So the health, your health and my health, depends on the integrity of this barrier, right? If the enemy, whatever virus, bacteria, injury, whatever, can breach this wall, so we have a second line of defense right behind the wall. And think of this as the border patrol. And in terms of immunity, this is something we're born with. We're born with these immune cells. It's called the innate immunity. And this border patrol is not specific. It doesn't care who you are, as long as it deems that you're unsafe and it deems that you're not part of their system, it is going to attack. And it attacks with brute force. Its weapons are not sophisticated, but if the invaders are less in number, the border patrol can easily take care of this. So, but if the invader is strong, more in number, or is something new, just like this coronavirus is a new virus, and the border patrol is not really equipped to deal very well with it. Even if it's an old virus, sometimes that can get through the border patrol. So then the border patrol starts raising the alarm and calls for special forces These special forces you would have heard of, your T cells, B cells, your adaptive immune system. Adaptive is something you don't have completely developed at birth, so it develops over your lifetime and it depends on what you've been exposed to. So what does all this have to do with inflammation? So remember this border patrol, once the enemy breaches and it comes in, the border patrol will start firing their weapons. And they will also start sending signal to the adaptive forces to ask for backup and recruitment. So the signals that it's sending out, we experience that as inflammation. So the point I'm making here is that inflammation is very critical to our survival. If we do not have this ability to inflame, that means we do not have the ability to kickstart the immune response. And this is dangerous. So we need to be able to inflame. Once we inflame and once there's like all this war going on here at the border, and they have all these dead bodies and there's a lot of mess, think of the damage done to the castle walls. The cleaning crew is going to come in immediately, and the construction crew. And they're going to start healing and repairing and fixing everything that's been damaged. So we need to be able to inflame, but we also need to be able to anti-inflame or heal and repair. Both are equally important. When the balance is lost, when we are inflaming more or faster than we can anti-inflame, that's when we start experiencing some degenerative diseases. So this is like a very, very simplified explanation for how inflammation works in the immune system. So the inflammation and anti-inflammation have to be in balance, and inflammation is important. But when we have chronic inflammation that's uncontrolled, and we're not able to kick in the healing and repair, and the balance is not there, this is all kinds of diseases expressed. And the good news is that the body will try to deal with this on its own for a long, long time before it would break down and we get into a disease situation. So the good news is that even if we have chronic inflammation, we do have plenty of room to start reversing some of it and dialing it back. And just like our title says, dial back inflammation. So the goal is we don't want to get to this point where we have express all these diseases. So what causes inflammation? So going back to the immune system, anything that it sees as a threat. And right now in our environment, our soil and water, I think we can agree that we live in a very polluted world. So we have these environmental toxins, and we have chemicals and additives, stuff that's in our food, in our cosmetics. Culturally, we've been so driven with the work culture, sometimes we don't have time, and sometimes we don't have access to nature. With nature, it's kind of interesting. If you don't have access to nature, I'll just mention it quickly here. Even listening to just nature sounds on your phone can really help trigger your healing and repair mechanisms. So nature is wonderful. Then infections, we go through our day, we don't know how many germs and viruses and bacteria around us that we're exposed to, and the immune system is on high alert. And it's always trying to do this friendly fire, right? So there's a low level inflammation going on just to protect us from getting sick. The side effects of medications, certainly some medications can have that side effect. There's stress, there's exposure to EMF or smoke, and this could be cigarette smoke, secondhand smoke, any of that. And then of course, all the synthetic and artificial products. And then of course, one big source is our diet. And that's what I'm actually going to focus on today, because that's an important source. But before I do that, I just want to share some good news. I just told you all the ways that we can get inflamed, right? So now I just want to focus on this good news here. Help is here, and help is inside you. We just need to be aware of it, and we just need to know how to use it. So the innate wisdom of the body, I think Suzanne mentioned the autonomic nervous system a while ago. We all have an innate intelligence built into us, right? Your heart beats, your breathing, when you're asleep, all your organs are still functioning. They don't ask for your permission the heart doesn't need your permission to beat, right? It's doing its thing. And the body is always striving to go towards balance. That's the beauty of this body that we have. It seeks balance, it wants balance. So how can we help it? So we'll look at some of the ways that we can help it to dial that back information and get into balance, or homeostasis, scientific word for it. And then the second thing, and Robin's going to talk about it, and this is going to be fun, is your microbiome. It's the good little bacteria and yeast, the good ones that live inside your intestines, and they help us. They train your immune system and they help us. So we need to help them. So we need to be their friend. And so Robin will tell us how on that one. Oops. I just use this slide every presentation I do just to let us know that, look, we have these 4 tools at our disposal. No matter what the topic that I talk about, these 4 tools always come in, because this is the power that we have, you know, with our lifestyle, with exercise, with our attitudes, because psychological stress is just as bad as physical stress, and nutrition. And so today I'm going to give us a few practical things that we can do with food to help us inflammation. So the top 2, sugar and refined carbs, you know, these are very, very inflammatory to our system. And if you think about it, they are everywhere. It's hard to escape sugar and refined carbs. It's part of the food culture that we live in. With sugar, the thing that surprised me when I first started researching this is that it can actually suppress your immune system for 4 to 5 hours. So think about, and you know what, I was actually wanting to hold up and see if I still have that, and I will show it, how easy it is to eat sugar. So I don't know if you can see this little Ziploc bag with sugar, and there are 10 teaspoons of sugar in this bag. And you might be thinking that, oh, and I looked at this first and I thought I would never eat that, you know, but it's so easy to do. This is how much could be in a glass of juice, or even in like a can of Coke. So, and 6 Oreos would have that much. So it's easy. We don't see it, so it looks like, you know, we're not eating a lot, but sugar is
They
easy.
even put sugar in savory foods.
Yes.
They do.
They do. And all of the low-fat foods that are in the market now, that when they take the fat out, that becomes unstable, so they have to add additives, and then it loses taste, so they have to put in more sugar. Mm-hmm. So even though the low fat has been, you know, said that it's healthy, but it has so much sugar, so you have to, if you're eating from a box, we have to really read the labels, you know, and preferably not from a box, but sometimes we have to, you know, we're running around, it's convenient, but just being mindful and reading labels can take us a long way and to help. So sugar is not just suppressing the immune system, it also creates something in our bodies called advanced glycation end products, AGE. And just like that acronym AGE, age, these end products actually age us. What these are is that sugar will combine with any proteins or any fats that are in your blood, and then it creates this advanced glycation end products. It's very, very inflammatory. So again, you know, think about, this is like, just by consuming sugar, we're constantly challenging our immune system. Think about that, the adaptive forces, the border patrol, we're really testing them and we're challenging them to keep firing their weapons, even when there's no virus or bacteria or any other enemy. So we're really using up our resources. Cancer cells love sugar. So this is, again, something to, you know, remember. And I'm not going to go into the rest of them for now, but if you look at the picture of this little picture in the bottom, you know, if someone's diet is high in sugar or refined carbs, that's how we're going to feel. Just no energy and very low moods. And sometimes it can also express itself as depression. And Alzheimer's is now being labeled as type 3 diabetes. So again, back to sugar. Another thing that really regulates inflammation is the fats in our diet. And I want to spend just a little bit time talking about this, because here, you know, for the longest time, we were on this low fat kick. And only recently fat is getting some attention as being, that it could be healthy. So there are fats that may not be healthy for us at all. And these are the ones that are fried, the trans fat, the vegetable oils that can be easily degraded. And when the vegetable oils, when you cook them even a little bit, they can really break down into toxic end products. The way that fats regulate inflammation is by balancing omega-3 and omega-6. You can control fair amount of inflammation. If you remember, like from that slide with the castle, I was telling you that the chemical messengers that, take the Border Patrol sends messages to the special forces through this inflammatory pathway. All those chemical messengers are made of fats. So the more omega-6 you have, the more pro-inflammation, and the more omega-3s you have the ability to anti-inflame. It's through these chemicals called prostaglandins, and I don't want to go into that. The key takeaway from here is to have the right balance of omega-3 and omega-6. In the Western diet, omega-6s are way too high. The ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 in our diet should be 1:2 or 1:3. But I've read like all over the place, like it's 1:10, 1:50. I don't know the right ratio, but I know it's a lot. But we consume more of the foods at the bottom than we're doing the foods on the top. And also, I just want to point out that fats are needed for healthy cell membrane function and healthy production of these anti-inflammatory prostaglandins. So we shouldn't be skimming on these, but we should try to eat the right kinds. And so I have some examples up here with the olive oil, and this is grass-fed butter. And the reason I pointed out grass-fed, there was some research done that shows that animal products, when animals are raised conventionally, they're higher in omega-6, their fatty acid profile. But the same animal, if you raise it in a pasture and give it what it needs in its natural habitat, then it's higher in omega-3. So the same food can become inflammatory or less inflammatory based on the source, based on what the animal has eaten. So we do have to be mindful of that. And oops. And then this slide is the one. So when there's inflammation in the body, what helps us put out that fire are antioxidants. Our bodies make antioxidants, but sometimes we do need the help from outside. And we have all the colors in here. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys all know this, but we may know it, but sometimes it's hard for me when I'm very, very busy and I'm preparing my meals for the week. I try to use this mantra because it helps me to keep myself accountable and to know that I'm eating a variety. It's go green, go blue, go nuts, go fish. So I want to make sure I have greens. I want to make sure I have something blue or red or a deep color. Nuts, if you're not allergic and you can eat some, they can be very healthy, especially walnuts, or you can think of, and this is not nuts, but you can think of seeds too here, pumpkin seeds or flaxseed. And then go fish. Fish, again, I just stick with the wild caught salmon as much as I can because, again, I know we have to think about all the contaminants. But as a general rule, the smaller the fish, the less the contamination, generally speaking. And then as far as my meals go, how I can make sure that I have these colors. If you eat salads or soups, spices, and seafood, then you're getting this green, blue nuts and fish. So that's how I keep myself straight. And these colors are phytochemicals or plant chemicals. And plants develop this in response to, trying to ward off predators, prey, whatever. So they develop this to boost their immunity. And then when we consume it, we're boosting ours. And then this is, I think, very, very self-explanatory. And all of you here, I know you guys are all coaches and all into health and wellness. So I don't need to tell you this, but whole foods versus processed foods, because processed foods by themselves can be very inflammatory as well. They're usually stripped of nutrients. And even if they have been fortified with vitamins, sometimes those vitamins are isolated and they're not in their synergy. In nature, vitamins always appear in complexes. You want the whole complex and not just one synthetic element out of it. So processed food also with a lot of chemicals. And I am trained as a chemist, and I'll tell you one thing. I've seen a lot back and forth on Facebook, on social media. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's the dosage that matters. And, it's very low in dosage. But if you consume a lot of processed foods, it's not about the dosage. Sometimes it's the interactions between these chemicals. And I haven't found a single study that has studied interactions between these chemicals. So at that point, my body is a lab and this is an experiment. And I want to avoid that.
That's my husband's dream study. He can't seem to get the government to fund it though.
Yep, because how would they ever? Yep. And I was looking at bread. I taught this at a high school. And so I said, oh, I'll just take a packet of bread and see what's on the label, and not giving away the brand or any names, but it had 31 ingredients. And I asked the children, I said, how many do you make bread and how many ingredients do you use? And they said 4 or 5. So what's 31 ingredients in bread doing,
Yeah. What are those?
Who studied that, right? And then this slide is actually I'm gonna turn over to Robin, and we're gonna have fun, because the 70% of our immune system is in our gut. I think 70 to 80 even. And I'm gonna let Robin talk about it. This is a vast, vast topic. And
I'm excited about this being able to share. I love sharing about gut health because I told you a little bit about my history at the beginning, about my son, and he's gone through a number of autoimmune diseases. And through all those years of his childhood, he's 30 years old now. Through all those years of childhood, he kept getting, more and more sick, to add on, and Ludi knows this, you get one autoimmune disease and it adds on another. And he went from type 1 diabetes as a toddler. They didn't know what to do with a 17-month-old with type 1, so they prescribed too much insulin, so he got some brain injury. Then he ended up with Hashimoto's, which is something Ludi has discussed before. And then he basically just kept getting worse, sicker and sicker throughout his life. And when he was having major anxiety, which we now know that the gut health has to do with our brain health and our mood, but no physician that we took to in this whole area in North Carolina had a clue in those years. And I would even point out, is there something about the diet I need to change? His stomach seems to hurt every morning. Does that have anything to do with it? Oh, no. And it was so frustrating with him being a child and me trying to find something that would work for him. So when I finally started going and looking at more holistic practices, I met a functional neurologist, actually through USANA, met a functional neurologist, and I took Kevin out there to Minnesota to his clinic, and he immediately said, gut health, we need to take care of his gut first thing, and took him off of gluten and dairy and then low sugar, which he already was. Kevin had been on a medically prescribed diet for the diabetes. And that particular diet was filled with grains, filled with things that were causing him to end up with food sensitivities and leaky gut, very bad leaky gut. So having someone say, yes, it is all connected. And that is what started my son's way to wellness. So yes, I'm passionate. I wanted to show you just one slide. Let me make sure I'm on the right thing. Just one slide, that's all I'm going to do. Wait, let me make sure the way the computer goes. Now I have to say this and share. Okay. So do you see this one slide now? Anybody? Pooja? Do we see it? Because I can't tell.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, yes,
I can see it. Okay. All right. Because I can't tell. But this Pooja showed, how inflammation results in so many diseases. And I was actually doing research. One of, the research that we were doing in inflammation, one of the big things that took us, and this is how many years ago now? It's at least 14, 15 years ago, maybe 16, was the fact that inflammation was the cause of so many different disorders and diseases, and not just the ones you think about, not just flat out. There's definitely the autoimmune diseases in there, and allergies and asthma. That's inflammation, and that's sort of what we're focusing on today. But if you also look at this, hormones, kind of unexplained weight gain, anxiety, depression, insomnia, stress, heart disease, rashes, rosacea, eczema, your oral health. We were talking about oral health and its connection with heart health. Well, all of this they have found is caused by this, whether our gut is healthy, which is just phenomenal, because that's a lot. And when Pooja said 70% of our immune system is in our gut, I mean, there's a lot of communication going on in our gut. I'm going to stop the share right now. But yes, it's, we know all these disorders, but there are a lot of them that you wouldn't even think of that had anything to do with your gut. It's not always you feel it in your gut. You don't always have digestive issues. You have totally different other symptoms. So at UNC, when we were working on this, we knew that the inflammation system had gone wonky and that inflammation was out of control. And we were trying to figure out why. Remember, this is 16 to 20 years ago. We were looking at how RNA, and I don't know if you know what RNA is, it's that genetic component that adjusts to the environment. So it's part of that communication system that Pooja talked about. We were studying how it regulates inflammation, and we were trying to figure out what goes wrong. And it's just so fun to learn. For me, it's fun to learn because our body is such a magnificent creation of systems. And it's so exciting to find out why things why things are happening this way, and how does our body communicate, and what are these microorganisms? And there's bacteria, fungi, and viruses all in our gut, but they're beneficial. They're helping us. They're helping us digest, which is what we've known that for quite a long time, that the microbiome helps with digestion. It helps us with formation of some hormones, with serotonin, and helps us with basically getting vitamins out of the food we're eating, and that. So it really is good in general for that. But there's a lot of conversation going on in our stomachs. We're not in our stomachs, down in our gut. There's a lot of communication, and it all depends on our environment is a big thing. As we grow, this is the adaptive immune system. As we grow and we have interactions with different things, it's a wonderful thing, digging the toes in the dirt. You're getting bacteria, you're getting organisms that way, but they're on the whole healthy ones. And so this explosion of research is just exciting. So as we're exposed to things in our gut and when we breathe, in our lungs, it all affects us. And we're focusing on food today, and food additives, Pooja mentioned, those food additives and the chemicals in the air and in the dirt really affects us and our body, and the microorganisms in our body react to those. And that's why some of these things we talk about, you don't want to eat, we explained about sugar and we explained about fats, and processed foods. Well, a lot of the food additives in those processed foods really make a huge difference on how our immune system reacts. Now, at the very beginning, Pooja mentioned cytokines, and we've been hearing a lot in the media about cytokine storms and the dangers of having a cytokine storm. But do you know what a cytokine is? Does anybody here know? If you break it down, cyto means cell and kinos means movement. So it's like cellular movement, cell signaling molecules. Cytokines are small proteins, and they help this cell-to-cell communication to help this adaptive immune response and help stimulate the cells to go towards sites of infection and trauma. And as Pooja said, that's very important. And there's two kinds of cytokines. There's the ones called pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they're very valuable in the case of injury, trauma, or infection. You know, they just go and fight. I mean, they send, the cytokines are actually causing some of that inflammation that you see, like that rubbing on the hand, the red, it causes that. But when they get out of control, they cause the chronic inflammation and autoimmune disease. And if they're out of control in a cytokine storm, I mean, we've heard that it could cause death. There's other cytokines called anti-inflammatory cytokines, and they reduce inflammation and promote healing. And there's brand new research showing that there's 3 factors that balance the production of both kinds of cytokines. Our genetics is one factor, our environment is another, and our gut microbiome is a huge factor. And sometimes our immune cells communicate with the microbes themselves, but even more often they react to the metabolites of these microbes. So you know, the microorganisms are helping us digest the food we eat, and through that digestion process, they're releasing metabolites, chemicals that are signaling all kinds of body systems. So we absolutely must pay attention to having a healthy gut microbiome. We both want diversity and we want health. We can have, I mean, there is a thing called SIBO, that there's overabundance of even what we might consider healthy. So we want a really good balance and a good diversity. And to do that, we need to eat right. We need to eat those healthy foods, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. We need to move our body every day. We don't have to go to the gym and do heavy duty workouts. If you want to, that's fine. But we do need to move our body. We're built for that. We want to sleep well, and we want to reduce our stress. So honestly, do your best to follow Pooja's dietary suggestions. And we must have those phytonutrients, those omega-3 oils, and fiber to help feed the good bacteria in our gut. And we've seen clinically, and there's studies out there, that the high omega-6 fats, sugar, and artificial sweeteners. So don't switch, so say I'm going to be low on sugar, so therefore I'm going to, use these artificial sweeteners. They also upset the balance and diversity of the gut microbiome. And then another kind of food additive are emulsifiers. And emulsifiers help that mouthfeel of the processed foods. They emulsify the oil and the water together to give like a smooth texture of stuff. Ice creams often have emulsifiers. Commonly used emulsifiers, if you want to be looking out for them, they include, mustard, soy, and egg lecithin, mono and diglycerides, polysorbates, carrageenan, guar gum, and canola oil. And they can cause an awful lot of problems with the gut microbiome. I make my own mayonnaise, and I do eggs from my happy chickens and mustard. And that does the same thing, but I'm not using things like that are these artificial things, especially the carrageenan and the guar gum. So are we able to get all the nutrition? We absolutely want to have all these fresh fruits and vegetables and you know, some of us are meat eaters and some of us are not. I'm going to let that be your decision. But if we do eat meat, eating from this, you know, looking at the source, what are the animals eating? Are they eating grass, or, you know, are they out eating good foods, getting their omega-3s up, or are they in stalls or pens just being fed corn? But yes, we can get all the nutrition we need through our diets if we work very hard at it. It can be true. But unfortunately, few people actually follow such a diet. And for example, in the United States, there was a survey that 8 out of 10 people responded that they either have extremely healthy or very healthy eating habits. There's a great self-belief that that we eat very healthy. However, when it was looked at exactly what they were eating, only 1 in 5 actually would be considered a healthy diet, not even very or extremely. It's just so easy, especially here in the US, to eat the wrong foods that are calorie rich but nutrient poor, and not nearly enough freshly grown fruits and vegetables. The result is that 70% of Americans today suffer from high levels of chronic inflammation. And absolutely, Pooja and I are on a mission to change that. And I think other people here are also on the same mission. And I really think that as a community, we can help each other move forward on this. Thank you.